The Wall Street Journal. Well, their editorial board did a pretty good job. It says the prosecutor needs to hear from Biden and Sunak, that's the Prime Minister of Britain, before it's too late. The task placed before Karim Ahmad Khan, the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, elected in 2021, was to save a failing court with a large budget but few successful prosecutions. The ICC has wasted its prestige. Now, in considering arrest warrants, ready for this? I talked about it. Arrest warrants for Israel's political and military leaders, starting with the Prime Minister. The court has an opportunity to shred its credibility, too. The Israeli media is flush with reports of imminent ICC prosecutions, though there's been no official confirmation or denial. Mr. Khan's candidacy was championed by his native Britain and supported by the United States. So both countries may have influence if they warn Mr. Khan of what will happen if he criminally indicts the Prime Minister of Israel and his staff. And if they don't, President Biden and Prime Minister Rishi Sunak risk finding Americans and Britain's necks under the gun. Got that? This is an international court about to go rogue. It can indict anyone they want, charge them criminally, issue warrants against Americans, against our elected leaders, against our military leaders. The Israeli High Command has prosecuted a limited war in self-defense against a genocidal terrorist group, even as Hamas fights from beneath cities and behind human shields. Egypt blocked refugees escape. Israel has a civilian to combatant casualty ratio that compares favorably with other urban conflicts. Actually, more favorably. Israel takes extraordinary measures to spare civilians, and it has disciplined and relieved officers for wrongdoing. It now facilitates a humanitarian surge, 25,000 and trucks to date, while Hamas steals aid and attacks distributors. What remains is war, the one Hamas started and is trying to win via international pressure. The ICC would subvert its own principles if it goes along with that strategy. First, the ICC prosecutor is supposed to investigate before indicting a world leader. Who does he think he is? Alvin Bragg? Not the other way around, but a proper investigation of allegations by anti-Israel NGOs has been impossible, while Gaza is a war zone and the ICC staff are busy in Ukraine. An indictment now would be highly irregular and revealing a bias of great power pressure. Second, the ICC is supposed to complement national legal systems, intervening only when they are unable to investigate. Is that really the issue with Israel's Supreme Court? Too restrained, too pro-Benjamin Netanyahu? The Israeli court is infamous for its judicial activism and anti-government tilt. Mr. Khan has said Israel has a robust system to investigate itself. And the International Court of Justice, well, is also on the case. Far from the court of last resort it is meant to be, the ICC would be piling on. The abuse of its powers would cause Israelis to rally around the flag. The biggest winner would be Putin, whose ICC arrest warrant will have been cheapened. Another unintended consequence would be a blow to U.S. Saudi-Israeli deal. How could the Saudis make peace with an Israeli regime branded as war criminals? And it goes on. Now let me add my piece here. These courts, whether it's Trump or Netanyahu, are corrupt. They're not courts any more than there were courts during the French Revolution, where the guillotines were working day and night 24/7 for a decade. This isn't law. It's not justice. This is persecution. The ICC, Donald Trump said, will have no authority over any Americans, any American officials, not now, not ever. That's the law in the United States. And yet, with this hovering on top of the Israeli government while they're fighting against the terrorists, while they're surrounded by Islamists and terrorists funded by Joe Biden and Blinken. Now this. Now let me tell you my thinking on this. Joe Biden and Antony Blinken are behind this. Why? They haven't said a word to stop it. And it's not a coincidence that this regime put out a report about war crimes around the world and put Israel at the top of the list. Not China, not Venezuela, not Iran, not all the rest of the reprobates and genocidal murderers. Israel. This is how they treat the ally, at the top of the list. No matter what Israel does, it can't win. Because Joe Biden's an anti-Semite. And Blinken's a traitor. And they have CNN to back them up. Jake Tapper. If this were to happen, terrorists around the world, Jew haters and anti-Semites around the world will be emboldened. They will be emboldened. This will give an official rubber stamp, no matter how corrupt and radical this court is, to the Jew hatred and anti-Semitism, and by the way, anti-Americanism, that's going on all over the planet. All over the planet. This will open the floodgates wide. You haven't seen anything yet. To the dangers being faced by Jewish people around the world, including in our country, and Americans around the world, including in our country. If you have an international court like this, no matter how corrupt, that issues arrest warrants for the Prime Minister of Israel, for the head of their defense, for the head of their IDF, then Jews will be targeted all over the world. That court will be cited as a justification. And I'm going to tell you something. It's not intended to be provocative or controversial. I tell you this as somebody who reads history and knows it well. With this administration, with the European Union, thank God for Hungary, with the entire world, with a few exceptions in Argentina, Hungary, and a few other countries, turning on this tiny Jewish state, with the capitals all over Europe filled with Hitlerians, with the college campuses in America, many of which supported the Third Reich before we were attacked by the Japanese in 1941 and war was declared by all parties, one against the other. They gave solace. They gave aid and comfort to the Third Reich, the Nazi regime. I am telling you, America, we've never seen anything like this since the 1930s. As a matter of fact, it's worse because it's not just one country, Germany. And if this arrest warrant is issued by this international organization of Europeans against the Prime Minister of Israel and other senior officials in Israel, I gravely fear a second Holocaust at some point. Because it is giving official approval by a so-called international court with so-called international judges, even though you and I know it's a farce. It doesn't matter. I fear a second Holocaust of sorts. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. But you can see the foundation is being built. It's being built in our own country with the Islamists and the Marxists, with billionaires using dark money, with Hamas and other terrorist organizations having a funding network in the United States, the funding of our colleges by Qatar and Communist China, Iran getting a nuclear weapon, they'll blame the Jews. Again, if this arrest warrant is issued, I believe it'll be not the first, but one of the biggest building blocks toward a movement that could lead to a second Holocaust. The language is the same. The target is the same. The complete unraveling of the civil society, the acceptance. Like this guy, Jake Tapper. Well, they're mostly peaceful. Complete clown. The United Nations, how they've targeted Israel and the Jews. And as I've said before, the Jews are the canary in the coal mine. Once this hate is let loose, it spreads like water. Everywhere. Everywhere. Christians won't escape it. Hindus won't escape it. Buddhists won't escape it. Nobody's going to escape it. Except those who believe they're superior. And we know what the Marxists and the Islamists think. Who they think is superior. Must history repeat itself? That's how evil and diabolical this arrest warrant will be. To give the international rubber stamp, their certificate of approval. And Joe Biden is silent. Joe Biden and Blinken put this prosecutor in the ICC. The Prime Minister of Britain put this prosecutor in the ICC. All they have to say is cut it out, don't do this, and they're absolutely silent. I believe from the bottom of my heart, the center of my soul, that Joe Biden and Blinken are behind this. I truly do. The same people who want to imprison Donald Trump. The same people who open the border no matter the horrors, the inhumanity, the slavery, the death, to hold on to power and change the very nature of the country. If this happens, and there's no pushback should happen now so it doesn't happen. Mark my words. This will be the first major shot, not the only, but the first major shot, the biggest building block. It's potentially a second Holocaust down the road. I believe this. Because this will be Europe. Europe doing this. Europe. Birthplace of fascism, Marxism, and all the other isms. I'll be right back.